episodes of the Haunted Hangover podcast. I'm Louie, and as always, I'm joined by my bud Dave.
Hey.
So Dave.
So Lou.
It's a new year, 2021. Let's wish the listeners a happy new year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
And we wanna look at last year and just leave that shit behind us, because 2020 was a rough year for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Onto bigger and better things.
Absolutely. I'm knocking on wood for everybody.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood that this year is just awesome and amazing.
Absolutely.
And the past about month and a half, right, Dave, we've been covering a lot of holiday, Christmas, Thanksgiving topics and films. We talked about Thanksgiving.
Sure did.
We talked about our favorite Santa Clauses. Punish. Silent Night, Deadly Night. That was Dave's choice. And, since it's a new year, we thought, let's get back into what Haunted Hangover is about. And that's Halloween. Spooky shit.
Whoa.
And, it's January, and we thought it would be fun to, take this month and cover some of our favorite Halloween-themed animated specials. And there's a lot. And I think we're going to cover some deep cut stuff and some stuff that people probably know about. So it'll be a good balance. This month there's 3 episodes of the Haunted Hangover podcast this month. So it'll be 3 episodes full of animated Halloween goodness. And we're going to start with the 2014 miniseries Over the Garden Wall.
I'm Wirt, and this is Gregory.
And that's a horse.
That's great, but who are you?
I'm Wirt. I'm just a guy, I guess. What do you mean?
Well, he's the butcher.
I'm the butcher.
The baker.
Yeah.
The midwife. The master and apprentice. The tailor. And I'm the tavern keeper. Who are you?
I'm hungry.
So Over the Garden Wall is a show that I brought up to Louie, and I've been wanting to cover for a while.
He has.
Spoiler alert ahead. This does have to do with Halloween, because I have never heard anybody talk about this in like Halloween threads. I've never heard it mentioned, as far as my knowledge is, that this show has never been mentioned amongst Halloween people. So Over the Garden Wall is created by Patrick McHale, who's also the creator of Adventure Time, and it's based off his short cartoon Tomb of the Unknown. It aired on Cartoon Network from November 3rd through November 7th as a special event miniseries. The show is broken down into 10 chapters that run about 10 to 11 and a half minutes long, I would say. And it's a very easy and quick binge the way they do it. So if you want to watch 1 or 2 episodes or even 3 and then stop and come back to it, it's easily done. Like, you can remember where you're at. They end. The way it's done is just it's perfect.
It's almost like a movie. Like, they could have easily cut these all together, and it would have been flawless, because they don't really end on cliffhangers. They kind of just end on fade out, like it just fades out, and it could easily just fade right into the next chapter if it were a movie. Because I think altogether, all 10 chapters are about 2 hours. So it's almost a feature-length film.
And I'm sure the way it was, like, its like initial creation was probably meant to be one giant thing. But I like that it's
like a movie.
Exactly. I like that it's broken down into 10 chapters.
Me too.
So the way that I found out about this was through an ex of mine. And at the time when she asked me, have you seen it? I didn't know what it was. And I had thought it's been out for a while. So literally, I started dating my ex at that time in 2014 at the end of November. So it just aired. So I saw it, and I just fell in love with it. I feel it's a timeless classic animation that will stand the test of time. I mean, I really do think that this is something that will really hold up 10 years later.
I totally agree, and I'm surprised that more people, like, there's not more merch. I know you have a lot of merch for the show. It does exist, but I'm just surprised I don't see more people talking about it. Like, it's like, for instance, here's an example. Nightmare Before Christmas. And I get it, that's a little more commercial, and that's like, I guess it's easier to market towards children and adults. But I'm just surprised that this show doesn't have more of a presence like online, in like with t-shirt companies and toy companies and things like that. It does exist because, again, I know you have a lot of stuff, but I'm just surprised. It's shocking that it's not more popular. And I know Adventure Time, which this guy Patrick McCall also created, is super popular. Like Adventure Time, you see merch everywhere. You go to the Comic-Con, there's people dressed up as the characters, and they sell those little pop things, and they sell toys,
there's
and
games,
all that shit.
There's video games, there's a whole bunch of shit.
So I'm surprised this didn't pick up more steam.
Right, and that's why I brought it up to you, was that for me personally, I don't know anybody that ever associates this with Halloween, and now you telling me that you've read articles about it, that makes me happy, because again, as far as I was concerned, nobody talks about it. It's never really brought up in the Halloween world.
It's definitely a deep cut. It's definitely something. It's not a go-to people watch during the Halloween season.
Right, exactly. And like you were saying, I own enamel pins. I have the score on vinyl, which is amazing, which is composed by the Blasting Company. I bought it digitally off of iTunes, the whole series, and I own it physically. I truly love this show.
Yeah, so there's enough of a following for them to create all this stuff that people will buy that are fans of the show.
Sure.
And it's just weird that I didn't even know it existed. It kind of blows my mind that I'm just now like watching this for the podcast. Like it's kind of crazy. But Dave, let's go into the plot of the show a little bit. Now usually when we cover a movie or we've covered Halloween specials or episodes specifically of other shows, we kind of break down the entire show. But with Over the Garden Wall, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stuff going on in the show.
Yes, there is.
But I'll give you a basic plot outline of basically a synopsis I created after watching it. And then what we'll do is we're going to talk about our 2 favorite episodes and some of the things that we think influenced it and kind of just some of our favorite parts about it. So the basic plot of the show is these 2 half-brothers, Wirt, who's voiced by Elijah Wood, he's the older brother. He's in high school, I believe. And Greg is the younger brother. He's maybe, I took him at like 8 or 9 years old. He's like a little guy.
Yeah, he's young.
Because the voice actor, I don't have his name here in my notes, but you can tell he's a young kid. The 2 stumble, kind of, into this mysterious fantasy world full of strange creatures, people, and like a lot of talking animals. So it's just kind of like just weird, trippy shit.
It definitely is.
It is Cartoon Network. And you could tell that, if you've watched Cartoon Network or Adult Swim, which this did not air on Adult Swim, they kind of add weird stuff to some of these shows. And basically, these kids are in this strange world, and they want to go back home.
Right.
The easiest thing I can compare it to, the first thing that comes to mind, is The Wizard of Oz. Because in that movie, you had Dorothy, who I believe gets into an argument with her aunt.
Her aunt.
She runs off. She talks to like a fortune teller. A tornado comes. She hits her head, wakes up in Oz, meets a bunch of characters, and has to find her way home. That's basically what this miniseries is. But obviously, it's very different because this is an original creation. But I could see Patrick McCall, right? I'm pronouncing his name right? McCall?
I think it's
McHale. I could see him using The Wizard of Oz as an inspiration because it's a little obvious.
I do want to say it's definitely an adult cartoon masked as a children's show, which I think a lot of cartoons are now, which is great. I do love that.
Oh, definitely, dude. If you're 9 years old or 8 years old, you're probably going to get bored with this. You know what's a good example I could think of? So Pixar just released that movie Soul, right?
Okay.
And it's an animated film. But if you watch it with like a 7 or 8 year old, they get very bored. I watched it with my girlfriend's nieces and nephews, and they were bored. They just wanted to play with their Christmas toys. They did not, their presents.
I mean, that's fair.
They had no interest because it went over their head. So Over the Garden Wall kind of fits that bill. Like it's the same. It's geared towards adults. I guess a kid, if you like weird characters and stuff, and there is some singing in this, that a kid it can grab their attention. But I could see a kid quickly just getting bored with this and wanting to go watch something else,
or just not understanding,
or like play with toys or something like that, or go play with their like iPad or some shit and like not watch Over the Garden Wall,
or just be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about some stuff that happens briefly, and then we'll go into our 2 episodes. So these 2 brothers, you know, again, they're trying to find their way home. And another movie this kind of reminded me of was The Neverending Story with The Nothing.
Yeah, I could see that. I didn't make that connection.
But instead of it being The Nothing, the villain of this is a guy called The Beast. And, you know, again, he's kind of looming over them throughout the entire miniseries on their journey. And they meet, you know, similar to, like I said, Wizard of Oz, they meet a blue jay named Beatrice, who was once human, but was cursed, her and her family, and turned into these birds, basically.
Because she stole a pair of scissors? Was that what
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe it was a pair of scissors
else.
And this witch turned her into a blue jay along with her family. So they meet her, and she kind of helps them along the way, like she's gonna kind of guiding them through. They also meet this woodsman who you think is a bad guy, but in actuality he's trying to help them.
Yeah.
He's not a bad guy, and you kind of learn more about him throughout the episode. You learn that he's alone, and the Beast is using him to kind of keeps the Beast alive by using this lantern that has a flame inside, and he tells the woodsman that inside this flame is his daughter's soul. So he's bullshitting the woodsman.
The Beast is kind of facilitating the woodsman to keep this lore up in this world that Beatrice, Wirt, and Greg are in.
You're watching this, and you're watching their journey. They meet a bunch of characters. You know, Greg has this frog that he constantly is naming throughout the entire... That's kind of a running gag throughout the entire miniseries. He keeps naming it different things, and it's kind of really funny because it's like, I think one time he calls him George Washington. One time he calls him Wirt. He names him Wirt Jr. He names him after his own brother.
You know, he's pretty much the comedic relief in the show, and all of his shit is funny. The rock facts, the candy camouflage, the candy trails. The kid is hysterical.
He is. He is literally the light at the end of the tunnel, because everyone, for the most part, when you watch this, even the colors of the show are very bleak, very dark, black, gray, heavy browns, oranges, very kind of just a little depressing. And he's like just the only happy person that doesn't even care he's in another world right now full of monsters. Like, it doesn't really ever faze him, and he just he's innocent, and he loves his brother. So, you know, kind of cutting through the shit to kind of move on throughout all these episodes. You know, again, they meet a bunch of different characters, and it's almost like a show. Every chapter is self-contained. They kind of have a little mission to complete, or something that's a piece of the puzzle to get them home. Now, at the end of the miniseries, we learn that Wirt has a crush on a girl at school.
Sarah,
yes. And he creates like this cassette mixtape for her, which I thought was really funny, because I'm assuming these kids are in 2014. I don't think kids had cassette players in 2014. I don't think that was a trendy thing yet. It's trendy now, but I don't think it was trendy a few years ago. And he's obviously very shy. He's embarrassed. And he goes out. I forget why he's grumpy, but like Greg constantly goes out with him, and he's happy and he's chipper. And I want to talk about their costumes for a minute, what exactly is Wirt dressed as? Is he?
I have no idea. I know it's like I don't even think he knows because one of the girls says to him, "What are you supposed to be, a gnome?" And he's just kind of like, "I don't know." And just a touch on Wirt's personality. I mean, he's like an angsty teenager. Of course, he's moody. That's his shtick.
Yeah, and Greg is dressed up as an elephant.
It's amazing.
And all he's wearing is a tea kettle on his head,
and like overalls and like socks.
Yeah. And they're wearing these outfits the entire miniseries. Yep. They're just wearing these costumes. They're basically wearing their Halloween costumes. And so you find out he created this mixtape. He wanted to share it with this girl. The girl I think is going to a Halloween party. He goes to the Halloween party. Greg, obviously his little brother, tags along. Greg just wants to go frog hunting. And Wirt just kind of brushes him off. He's like, "Fuck you, we're not doing that. I'm more worried about this girl." Because I think Greg gives her the tape, right? He does. He gives Sarah's friends the tape.
And they put it in her jacket pocket.
Kind of to fuck with Wirt, to mess with them. Because they're like, "Oh, you like Sarah, ooh," that type of situation. Where they're kind of teasing him, and they kind of want her to find out to embarrass him.
Exactly.
So I think Sarah is at a Halloween party. Wirt and Greg go there. Sarah invites him out to hang out in the cemetery. And they go to the cemetery. Wirt, I think, turns her down. He's like, no. He tries to take the tape out of her jacket. He fails. Greg and Wirt go to the cemetery. And I think cops show up. And they all run off. And they eventually hop this, like, wall. It's in the title of the miniseries, and stumble onto I think he sees Sarah, look at the tape finally. He falls over the wall with Greg. They fall on some train tracks. They have a little bickering argument, and Greg finds a frog. The train's coming. They jump out of the way, go into a lake, and go unconscious. And that's how they end up
in the
earlier. It literally jumps to him being in the unknown.
So when you're watching this series, the costumes that they're wearing 100% fit into the world of the unknown. So you think that they're just in that world. Like, that's the world that they were, created in. And the way the very first episode opens up, they give it to you. They're letting you know what's going on. But again, you don't know what's going on. But when you watch when you get to the, finally when you get to the end, you realize, holy fuck, they literally just opened up with what happened to them, which is amazing. To me, I've always loved stuff like that, where things are handed to you immediately, but you have no idea.
It's one of those shows it's not really a show, it's a miniseries, but if you were to watch it back a second time, you pick up on a lot of stuff that you didn't notice the first time you watched it, And again, we're not going to go into too much of the ending because we do want people to watch this because it's a deep cut and not a lot of people talk about it. But what I did want to get into, Dave, is 2 episodes specifically, and I just talked about one of them, episode 9. And I want you to talk about why episode 9 is your favorite episode.
Okay. So, episode 9, Into the Unknown. Woo! It's one of my favorite things ever. So, this entry in the series is one of my favorite depictions of Halloween there is. When you finally realize Wirt and Greg are basically dying, and it's just been this giant dream, and I'm getting chills talking about it right now. Like, it's crazy. It's just like, holy fuck. And when I figured it out, even before I saw this, is because the entire show is very dreamlike. Everything about it. And this is going to sound a little cliche. I write a lot of my music. It's a lot of it's based off of dreams I've had. So I was able to identify and relate to these because I've seen this stuff in my dreams. You know what I'm saying? Like, these atmospheres, these worlds.
No, of course.
I was like, this is like a dream. And when I told my ex at that time, she was like, how'd you figure it out already? I'm like, I've been here. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is very familiar to me. It's just, it just, the whole thing is just very chilling. So, like I said, with the depiction of Halloween, I mean, you got these kids, you got these teenagers he's making the girl he likes a mixtape. You could tell that he's this moody teen, and Sarah's, she's supposed to be like a skeleton clown or something. Like, I loved her costume, like the entire way, like the way like the neighborhood is set up, like all the jack-o'-lanterns, all the attention to detail and everything. And even in the unknown, every blade of grass, every leaf, every background animation, it's just so well done. The Halloween party that they go to, there's like this new wave pop song playing. It's so good.
I was about to say, yeah, it's amazing.
It's so good. And the kids go into a graveyard to tell ghost stories.
I feel like I agree with you. I think that episode 9, Into the Unknown, that episode makes this a Halloween themed like special, or it's a miniseries.
For sure.
But it makes it because it's set on Halloween. Technically
the entire thing is set on Halloween.
but the unknown, the world that they enter is very autumn feeling.
Oh, for sure.
There are a lot of warm colors, a lot of browns, a lot of oranges. It at certain times, and when I get to my favorite episode, it's very, very autumn and fall and kind of Halloween. But it does feel like it. It even feels a little Thanksgiving. That's what I'm saying. Like I think one of the early things he sees is like a random turkey slam its head into a table or something like that. And like it does, it just feels like the autumn. And that's what I think it's got going for it first and foremost. It does feel like that time of the year. And going into your favorite episode, Into the Unknown, you're right. Like the cemetery. The entire setup of him being in his room, him making his costume, him with the mixtape, and then him on this little adventure with his annoying brother that I found odd. He wasn't taking his brother trick-or-treating. They do mention that he got a bunch of candy, but they never show it.
For helping a neighbor.
Yeah, from a woman, and I think he stole like her little rock or something too.
Or he helped a woman rake leaves, and then she gave him candy, and he's like, Greg, it's Halloween. Candy's free.
Yeah.
Something that I wanted to add was, so when you're watching this series, and then once you get to episode 9, Into the Unknown, you're just like, it just hits you. You're just like, holy fuck, this is not, what the fuck is going on? You know what I'm saying? Like, they just throw it at you, which I think is very effective.
No, yeah, like I said before, I feel like if you watch this a second time, knowing the ending, knowing that they're just unconscious in a lake, like you'll pick up on all these little subtle details throughout. Dude, like I watched it once straight through, and I put it on again to take some notes, and I was like, oh, like I noticed little foreshadowing to stuff that's going to happen later.
Exactly. And the other thing that I wanted to add is that I haven't seen this since I saw it in 2014. This was my first rewatch fucking almost 7 years ago now. So
surprised you don't watch it every year.
Well, I'm going to start to.
Oh, pardon me there. Say, you folks ought to don your vegetables and celebrate the harvest with us.
Oh, you're wearing costumes.
Well, sure. Pumpkins can't move on their own, can they?
No.
Good thing I didn't take this off.
You guys find this place as creepy as I do, right?
So it's some kind of weird cult where they wear vegetable costumes and dance around a big thing. They seem nice enough.
Okay, you're in denial, that's fine. But I'm just saying, something feels off about this place.
So my favorite episode is Chapter 2, and that's called Hard Times at the Huskin Bee. So in this episode, the boys and the talking blue jay, Beatrice, they just at this point they had just met her, and I think she like decides to team up with them, and she's got her own little scheme going on that you find out about later. But she's like, I'll tag along and I'll help you guys, travel across this world. And I think she explains to them that she knows a woman that might be able to help them, a woman named Adelaide.
Yep.
and she could help them get back home. So in the process, the four of them, because there's also the frog, stumble across this like deserted town called Pottsfield. And it basically looks like there's no one living there. It looks completely empty. And it's like a farm. You see a barn, hay, there's pumpkins everywhere. So like I said before, just looking at these images, very autumn, very Halloween.
The best part is when they're walking, and as they're entering the town, there's no pumpkins on the road, and then suddenly they're just stepping in pumpkins, which is hilarious.
Yeah, they just random. I think Greg steps in one and like gets stuck on his leg. So they end up walking towards the barn, and they enter, and they discover that the townspeople, who are all dressed like living jack-o'-lanterns. I even think at one point Greg and Wirt think that they're just like living jack-o'-lanterns. Yep. But they tell the people, no, we're wearing costumes. And it's their annual harvest. And it kind of reminded me of the Wicker Man a little bit.
Okay.
Like they're running around in circles, dancing. It had to be an influence. The Wicker Man had to be an influence on this episode, I think. And what ends up happening is, I guess like the master, the head guy running the harvest, their little event, tells them, you've disturbed our harvest, and that they have to be sentenced to something. So they're basically in deep shit. Like, you guys messed up. You messed up our event. And the sentencing is just doing some manual labor. And there's even a line where I think Wirt is like, really? That's it? Like, oh, okay, fine. We can do some manual labor.
And they're happy. They're like super happy doing it too. They're like, oh, okay.
So I think they ship them out to the back, and they have them digging up holes in the ground. And what ends up happening is you end up finding out that, and this is how I took it, the town, no one's alive, because you find out that underneath those jack-o'-lantern costumes are just skeletons. That's how I took it, and that they're digging up the corpses of the people that live in the town and are going to dress up as pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns and stuff. So I thought that was a really interesting, just little side story in the miniseries, because it doesn't really play into the overall arc.
No.
Of the boys wanting to get back home. It's just a little side mission.
Right. And it goes back to what I was saying about the real world bleeding into the unknown, because it's Halloween time. So that's definitely why that's there. And
the pumpkins, the jack-o'-lantern faces look like nostalgic, like the Beastle decorations, like very old school, like 60s Halloween style decorations. That's obvious. I think that's what they did. That has to be what they designed these townspeople after.
The entire show is a real big homage to the old ways of cartoons and that classic style of cartoons, which is great.
And so for me, again, this episode I feel like watching this episode and your episode, Chapter 9 and Chapter 2, these two episodes are probably the most Halloween of the series.
Oh, absolutely.
And I do like how, the Hard Times at Huskin B is Chapter 2, very early in the series. And then Into the Unknown is Episode 9, Chapter 9, much later. But they were able to kind of bookend it with very Halloween-centric stories, even though one of them is kind of a side mission and the other one reveals what's really going on with these two boys.
Welcome home, Auntie.
Lorna, my sweet child. Has anyone come here today?
Nay, Auntie, not a soul.
Then no one shall be devoured alive tonight.
Nay, I pray not, Mum.
Devoured alive?
You're a good girl, Lorna, but you deceive me.
I speak the truth, Auntie, I swear.
Deceive me not, child. I can smell them. I can smell the children in this house.
I want to talk about one other aspect of this that I really, really liked. And that's in episode, I believe it's Chapter 7. It's called, that chapter's called The Ringing of the Bell. The boys are introduced to this character, named Auntie Whispers, who's voiced by Tim Curry.
So good.
You know, everyone knows Tim Curry.
Yep.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. And
dude, the entire voice cast, you know, the voice actors is just great. Chris Isaac also is a voice actor. The dude from Reno 911 who plays Lieutenant Dangle is one. Melanie Linsky is another one who does Beatrice. The whole thing is just
it is
superbly done.
And yeah, you meet Auntie Whispers, and they meet this other character named Lorna, and you learn. And I just want to describe Auntie Whispers. She's very large, has like rotted black teeth, and she's dirty. She has like this like mud all underneath her, like I guess it's like a dress or something. She's wearing hood, and she's huge with giant like eyes, and just it's kind of skeevy looking. So when you see her, you're like, oh man, this is like an evil person. But there's a little twist, and I don't want to give it away here. In that episode that I loved, between Lorna and Auntie Whispers and the boys, and between Wirt and Greg, just kind of that whole interaction. And that to me was a twist that I didn't see coming watching it. Because you meet Auntie Whispers and you're like, oh man, they're in trouble. She's going to eat them. Because she's insinuating, devouring. And she's
very intimidating looking.
Yeah, very intimidating. There's even a point where Wirt and Greg are hiding in like a barrel of turtles. These like little black turtles that you constantly see pop up in the entire series.
Yep.
And she eats one of them. So you're just like, oh man, I hope they don't, she doesn't find them. It's just, she looks scarier than most of the other villains they meet throughout the series. And I just thought that episode, that character was very well executed, and it's very horrific. It's a very like horror-y type episode, and I loved it. And I don't want to spoil what happens in chapter 7. But I didn't see it coming, and I don't think most people will. Like, when they watch it, I don't think most people will see it coming. That's just me. Did you see it coming?
No, probably not. And you know what? Speaking of turtles, in episode 3, Schooltown Follies, there's a scene where Greg is talking to, like, the animals next to, like, a lake.
Yeah.
And one of them is a little raccoon in, like, a little hat and overalls.
Yeah.
And as Greg is talking to them, and like it doesn't even look like they're paying attention to Greg. They're just sitting next to him. Yeah. I think it's a turtle or it's a bug or something. Like a little turtle just kind of walks by, and the raccoon just picks it up and throws it. And it's so stupid. But
there's a lot of random shit like that. There's so much random shit like that. I feel like the entire episode, like if you smoke weed or you take hallucinogens and you watch this, you'll fucking love it.
Oh, it's trippy.
It's trippy.
You know, like there's just a lot of quirkiness to it. You know, the potatoes and molasses song. The whole scene where they say there's a gorilla that's terrorizing the little village, and it's just somebody dressed up in the costume. And then there's a scene where these squirrels are just beating the shit out of the gorilla head. Like there's just so many little things on top of already how good this is that it's hysterical. Like it's equally funny, equally dark, and it's equally scary. And it's like, it just goes to the writing. The writing is just so well done. So I've been fawning over this entire series the entire time we've been recording. Louis, I know you have maybe one or two cons about this.
It's funny because usually when we review something or we talk about something, a movie or a show, we always we like to do like one or two cons at the end, And it's funny when I was texting you and we were kind of just going back and forth about some stuff. You were like, Lou, I have 0 cons when it comes to Over the Garden Wall.
I have none. I have nothing. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
So my only 2 cons are these. I'm not going to go into the ending and what happens in the final episode and how they get back home. I felt it was a little convoluted, and there were a lot of small details you could miss upon first viewing. Like, I watched this once, and I was like, okay, huh? All right. Like, I understood.
Did you do that in that order? Did you say it in that order?
Yes, just like that. Like, there was just some stuff where I was like, it was a little lost. Like I got it, but at the same time I was like, really? I'd missed that earlier. And then when I put it on a second time, again, I didn't pay attention as much because I was taking my notes and just writing stuff before we recorded. I picked up on stuff and I understood it better. So again, it's better on a second viewing.
Yeah.
But I just thought the ending was a little contrived, just a little too much in 11 minutes. I feel like they maybe could have worked it. And I know they do talk about certain details and how to get back home and what Beatrice did and how she, is involved with all of this. But there was just small little things. Like I'll say one thing to you that felt more important than it actually was, but I don't think it actually was as important, but they make it seem like it was the rock that he stole.
Yeah.
Like it's played up. He's like, return it to her yard or whatever, her garden. And I was like, wait, are they just joking around or was that actually important? Because he does show it earlier in the series. So stuff like that was just, I was a little iffy on. I was like, okay, what's more important? In actuality, the most important parts are Wirt, Greg, the Beast, the Woodsman, and Beatrice the Blue Jay. Those are the most important things. But there are small details that help them, or like the Beast needs this, they need this, Beatrice needs this, the Woodsman needs this, and that's what I'm talking about. It was a little convoluted. You get where I'm coming from?
I definitely know what you're saying. And I think what's funny is that it really is all based off of perspective. So while watching this, to me, that stuff really wasn't that important. What was most important to me was that these two kids are just basically fucking dying. And this was what was going through their heads as they were essentially going to fucking pass on. And then they didn't die. You know what I mean? So like the returning of a rock or, what Beatrice did, I almost took that all as just what was happening in a dream because sometimes you can't make sense of what happens in a dream. Do you know what I mean?
Which is a good way of looking at it. That's definitely a good way of looking at it. But just watching it and just going like, okay, I get it. I feel like they could have simplified it a little more.
Or, you know what? They could have made the ending maybe 20 minutes. It probably wouldn't have been a big, you know what I'm saying? To maybe tack on another 10 minutes. But you know what? I think for me, this thing was handled like insanely well. I know I had mentioned it earlier that I thought the atmosphere was incredible because it is. I think overall, the animation is beautiful. The colors are great. The character design, the background animations, the entire world of the unknown is otherworldly and perfect. This show really creates its own world while staying original and unique. The atmosphere is some of the best I've seen put to screen and in a cartoon. I mean, every candle, every tree, it's so good.
And there is like, and I'm glad we're kind of avoiding it, even though we kind of gave away the ending that they're unconscious, but how do they get back home? We're not telling people that. And that's the specific moment I feel like could have been simplified a little bit. And maybe when people watch it, maybe we'll get feedback. Be like, you know what? I understood it. Or Lou, I agree. But my second thing, and this is just a nitpick, a personal preference, is if it's October 15th, middle of the month, prime Halloween time, fucking jack-o'-lanterns on the table, they're playing horror movies on the TV. I'll be 100% honest, and I don't know if Dave's going to like this. I don't know if this is something I would recommend to a Halloween lover for the month. Not that I would not recommend. I would recommend this to anybody to watch. If you like animation, you like, a good story, you like good animation, it's great. But while watching it, and again, this is my initial going in blind, my initial viewing of Over the Garden Wall. I did not feel like it was Halloween at certain times. Now, episode 2, which was my favorite, episode 9, which was your favorite, are the most, they're filled with Halloween, pumpkins and costumes and the atmosphere and all that stuff. But the rest of it doesn't. It feels more of like a fantasy film. So I feel like if someone was like, hey, recommend me a good animated, film or series or special for October, I don't feel like this is it. Like, there's another special I'd recommend that I don't want to talk about now because we're going to be covering it soon. But it wouldn't be my first choice because I feel like out of the 10, only 2 of them are actually Halloween-centric.
Right. And it's funny, and again, it goes back to perspective where, for me, because when you find out that this whole thing is taking place on Halloween night, for me, that's enough to consider this a Halloween-centric show. You know what I mean? I would personally tell anybody to add this to your watch list for October. That's just me, though.
Yeah, again, it's subjective, dude. Right. In the end, it's like you think it's a beautiful animated series, and it's very well made. I did enjoy it, but it wouldn't be the first thing on my watch in October Halloween list. Like there are other things that come to mind before this.
That's fair.
And it's very atmospheric, but it's atmospheric in a different way.
Yeah. Well, that's why I mentioned it a bunch of times. It really is atmospheric. It's super heavy on the atmosphere.
But is it like there's an episode where you go into Greg's dream? Nothing about that episode screams Halloween to me.
No, and what's funny? I actually did make a note about that episode, and it was just like when he actually goes to Cloud City, as it's called. That if you look at the background animations, again, I keep talking about the background animations because again, it's this atmosphere that they create is just like even just as good as like a real movie. And you watch it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm paying attention to the background, like holy shit, I love the way that was drawn.
Yeah, it's well crafted, dude. It's well made. It's just
it does nothing to do with Halloween. I definitely agree with you.
There's zero Halloween in it, so it's kind of like if imagine you recommend this to someone that loves Halloween and they love pumpkin, someone like us who loves Halloween, and again subjective, but there might be someone that wants Halloween decor in every frame, wants spooky music, or wants trick-or-treaters in a lot of the shots, something that's Halloween 100%. For me, this would not be high on the list. Would I recommend it? You want to watch something different on Halloween that's Halloween themed? I'd recommend this. If you want something very different. Now, if you want something that, again, you feel like you're in the mood. You feel like it's autumn. It's chilly outside. You want to feel like it's that time of the year. I don't know if I choose this, man. I don't know.
I would want to recommend this to anybody as far as a Halloween watch because I'd want them to be surprised when they find out that it's taking place on Halloween. So it's just that's where I'm coming from with this. Because like I said, I was just hit. It was like getting hit with bricks. I was like, holy shit, this takes place on Halloween. I'm sold. Like, I was already sold. But once I see it's on Halloween, I was like, done. I'm done. This is it. This is one of my favorite things I've ever seen.
I mean, he could have done away with us by now if that was his plan. And he lit that fire. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible there's a beast, since there was a talking bird, but...
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like a boat upon a winding river, twisting towards an endless black sea. Further and further, drifting away from where I want to be, who I want to be.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did you know that if you soak a raisin in grape juice, it turns into a grape? It's a rock fact.
So that was Over the Garden Wall. Be sure to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter @HauntedHangover.
And if you can rate and review us, that'd be greatly appreciated.
And remember, the best cure for a hangover is...
more booze. And that's a rock fact.
Later, guys.